Now, the objective for these lessons includes knowing the types of lights we have in Blender, learning how to add and position those lights in the 3D scene, adjusting the light properties such as its strengths, its colors, and also understanding the effects of light and what it causes to the mood and how it creates a realistic effect on our scene. Okay. Now, why do lighting matters in general? So why do we care about putting lights in our scenes? Now, light helps us to create depth and realism to our scene. It helps us to highlight important details to tell, okay, if the color of the light is actually red or is pinkish, and if maybe we are in the daytime or nighttime. So that's how light actually affects. So like the next one says, it creates atmosphere and mood. So if everywhere is dark, you tend to perceive, okay, it's moody or it's about to rain. And that differs with the type of light you use and how you position your lights, which we'll discuss in practical sense as the class proceeds. Also, it's also essential for rendering professional quality images as well as videos. All right, without light, you won't appreciate the beauty of the work you've done, like we would see, and see how we can actually apply that to our 3D projects. Now in Blender, there are essentially 4 types of lights. The first light being the point light. The point light helps us to emit light in all directions, more like a bulb in scenario. So just the way it is, the point where it is, and it helps us to radiate the light in all direction. Then the next type of light we have is the sunlight. Now the sunlight acts like our normal sun in the atmospheric world we live in. It's more like having parallel rays, and it helps to simulate the sunlight that we have ideally. So most times it's usually used for outdoors to specify the lighting or the extreme brightness we expect from our scenes. Then we also have the spotlight. Now the spotlight has a shape of the cone, and it helps us to spot. It's more like helping us to spotlight a particular thing or region. Say, for instance, if you watch those musical shows where an artist is dancing and there's this light that just shows wherever that place is dark, that's exactly the same way spotlight works. All right. Then the fourth one is the area light. Now, the area light is more like a rectangular light that is very soft and diffuse in the sense that it's not as sharp. It's using the word diffusion, which means from a region of lower concentration to region of higher concentration. That's simply how the area light works. Okay. From the area where we have less light, it spreads across the areas where we require more lights. Okay. Now, the light properties will require for us to change. Just so we can actually change the properties in the properties bar for our meshes. We can also do the same for our light. All right. Now, the essential ones that we tend to see most often in most projects you take on as 3D artists includes the strength of the light, the color of the light, the shadow, and the radius. Okay. Now, what the strength does is to help us control the brightness. More like if you want to get a bulb for your room, you can specify, oh, I want a 30 watts bulb, I want a 60 watts bulb, 100-watt bulbs. And each of those watts of bulbs have their own specific brightness they give to your room. Okay. And then color. Color helps us to create this mood and tune. All right. So if everywhere looks reddish, you assume maybe it's sunset or it's extremely hot or there's something burning. All right. Or the weather is gloomy when you see a dark color. All right. Or it's about to rain, the clouds are dark. All right. So that's how color affects our moods and it gives it a particular tune to our 3D scenes. And shadows help us to create this um realistic effect that the thing is actually existing and living, more like you having your natural shadow, and shows the direction at which light is being casted on an object. Okay, and we have the sharp shadow and the soft shadow. Now the radius helps to affect the softness, all right? So it works mainly with the point light, but like giving us a dimension. And if you follow the concept of what a circle is, a radius simply means the distance from the center of the circle to the circumference. So that's what it actually does. So the larger it is, the bigger the surface area or the circumference in which our point light can cover. Now, for today's class, we'll work mainly on, we've done texturing for the previous classwork, which would be the blend file we're using, the house. We would have to move to the next phase, which is lighting, before we teach other topics, which is the camera and rendering in bits. All right, so having done the theoretical part, let's create. Okay. Now this is the house we worked on the previous lesson. So now let's introduce our light to our scene. Now by default, you will see a light. Let me zoom out. Okay, I'm going to put on my screencast so you're sure what keys I'm pressing. All right. All right, so by default, we have this point light, which we can change to whatever light we want. All right. Let me walk and navigate around this. I'm going to close this. We're going to join to the right. So we have just the house. We're done using our reference. Okay. Going to split this a little. Okay. Minutes, please. Let me check on my screencast. Oh, it's activated. Okay. All right, so now let's work on going to close this back. Don't know what I want. So let's focus now on the object. All right, so like I mentioned before, the first button here is the zoom. This is the pan, which helps us to view around it. Then we have the camera. Now click on the camera to know what our camera can see so far. Though we've not gotten to the camera part, but I just want to set the camera in such a way that we tend to understand or see the effect of the lights as we add it and tweak it in our scene. So I'm going to do G of Z to take this camera upward. All right, so since I've adjusted my camera, as you can see, I'm going to show you. Yes, okay. So we are currently in our material shader. I'm going to move to the rendered shader so you understand or see how the lighting source occur. Now, like I mentioned, we already have a default light in our scene, which is the small light you can see. So I'm going to zoom out so I can click on it, which is this one. And you can see the effects of this light on our scene currently. This is referred to as the point light. So I want to bring it a little bit closer. So G of Z. and bring it to the front a little. So now what do you notice? You notice that the front is now bright as well as the side. Okay, by just bringing just the point light close to it. Now, if you go towards the property bar, you notice that shows the point light, and this point light is currently at 1000 watts, having a soft shadow, which is a soft fall off. So if I reduce this to 20 watts, you notice it's not as bright as it initially was. Okay, it's just the same practical way we work with lights and the watt bulb. In reality, that's how we work around it, even in the 3D space. So the brighter, if I take this and just add 2000 to make it twice the size of the brightness, you notice that the light is actually very bright compared to what we have here already. So I'll take it back to the initial 1000 and we'll experiment on other type of light. So I'm going to delete this particular light, X to delete, and I'm going to add in the other form of light so we can experiment and see how they all operate. So Shift A to add in our light. I won't be using meshes. I'll just go down to light, and I'm going to start with the spotlight since we've already worked with the point light. So I'll click on spotlight, sunlight, and it's stuck in here. So I'm going to bring it out. So G of Z to bring it above. And you notice the effect. Now, currently, it has a strength of 1. But once I increase this strength to 10, it becomes extremely bright. I can bring this to the front, G of Y, and rotate it to face our mesh. And you can see it looks more like the realistic sun we see every day with its own even brightness. Okay? Now I can just also change the color of the light. Say I change it to green. And because the sun is now green, it seems like our mesh is made up of different shades of green. And like I mentioned, those are properties we tend to change or tweak when working with our lights. Okay. So if I take this and take it to the red, it changes the look of our image. Or take it to the usual yellow sun. See how bright it is. And you can choose to increase the brightness and you see how it looks like. Okay, that is for sunlight. Now for spotlight, I just came here to change it. You can switch it the way you want, or you can just bring them in. All right. So let me go with the previous one of bringing them in and X to delete this. So Shift A, so we can go over the process of adding light to our scene. I will not go to mesh. Meshes are for shapes only. I'll go down to light. We've used the point light. We've used the sunlight. The next one is the spotlight. And let me zoom out a little so you can see it. Like I mentioned, the spotlight is more like a cone, or it has a conical shape. So which means G of Z to bring it out a little. And it is spotlighting our house. Okay, the house model we've done. So I want to scale it up a little. So S to scale, then G of Z to bring it down. Then I'm going to increase the tenacity, the strength, the power of this bulb. I'll just call it 1000. If you notice, it has a spotlight effect on top of the roof. Okay, and if I rotate this arrow of Y, it's no longer spotlighting that region. But if I do it G of Z, let me bring this G of Y to the roof, a particular side of the roof. They'll go back to rendering. It's only spotlighting that part. It's not showing on the other side of the scene. All right. So unless there's a specific thing you want your audience to see, then you can focus on that particular region. Okay. So that's for the spotlight, X to delete. And the last light we discussed is the area light. So Shift A, and you move over to lights, and we pick area light. Now the area light, let me bring this out, G of Z, to take it up. It's rectangular in shape. If you see the shape, by default is a square, but you can come down here to change it to a rectangle, right? And choose to affect, okay, let's say I increase the X value of my rectangle, and I increase the Y value of my camera. You notice that it takes the rectangular shape we talk about. Okay, more like when they say a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. What that statement simply means is, for a square, all the sides are equal, which means that the length can have the same value as the breadth, which is the X value and the Y value. But for a rectangle, in as much as it has four sides, right, opposite sides are equal. So it does not matter if the opposite sides are equal to the other opposite sides, which can be the square having the same size as the length and the breadth. But the difference is that it's not all sides that are equal like a square, but opposite sides are equal. So that's why you generally move with the fact that it is rectangular in shape. The same thing also happens. So I'm going to put it back in my camera view and increase the brightness of this. Now, unlike the spotlight and sunlight, it's going to take around the area, like the name area light. The entire area is covered with the light. If I choose to reduce it a bit and go with 500, it's still going to cover the entire area where it's existing. So if I pick it and say G of Z to be closer, or I bring it out a little, G of Y, so the light falls in a bit, I'll still be accurate. Okay, so I'm going to work with the area light specifically. So you can have more than one light in a scene. All right, the entire thing or the entire goal is to meet up with the fact that your rendered work looks professionally amazing. Okay, and one thing I want you to know is it takes time and consistency to build that kind of professional career. All right, so like I mentioned in the introduction, you can choose to specify or be specialized in a particular field, but the essence of this course is to make you industry ready, which means you can function as in any capacity as a 3D artist. Okay, so I'm going to add this first light. Let me rotate along the y-axis, arrow of y, a little. I'm going to scale it a bit so it's not that bright. Shift D to have two lights, G of X to bring it this way, arrow of Y to rotate it in opposite direction. I'm going to bring it up a little, G of Z. Then I'm going to reduce, let me make this 300. The watts of this, I think 300 is still on the high side. I'll call it 200, just to give it a little bit of shade than the front side, assuming light source here is much, and I'm not using the sunlight in this regards. Okay, since our light is ready, our camera is just stationed where we want it to be. I can choose to render this, and let's see how colorful it is. In as much as I've not gotten to the render part, I'll just show you a few things we set up when we want to render, just to see the effect of the images or what we've done so far, or the lighting scene we've done. So now for render, we have three render engines: the Eevee, the Workbench, and the Cycles render. I'll start and stop for the now on just Eevee render till we go to the topic of rendering, the rendering topic under this curriculum. Now, I will select my render engine, which is, to me, very supported and suitable for any laptop type. Okay, no matter what laptop you're using, Eevee is very considerate when doing that. Okay, so you can choose to increase to click on your ray tracing since we have some glasses in our scene, though our animation did not reflect any of such. All right, so after doing that, we'll have to go to the output settings so we know where our image is going to fall in. So I'm going to click on the folder icon beside it, and I'm going to look for my Tech Edu folder. I'm going to put this in week 4 and accept. Okay, now I've selected where I want my final render to be in. Now the file format is PNG since you are focused on images and not video for the now. So since you have PNG already, I'll just go to render, which is here, and render images. Okay, now render is complete. Now from the render, this is what we have. Okay, so I'm going to save this as our first rendered work. So save. I'm going to call it, so week 4, call it a new. I'm going to call it, let me just call this house render 1. House, sorry, please. Render 1. I'm going to save the image. All right, so let's check the light a bit. Well, sorry, I'm going to close this. So we'll focus on one render at a time. All right, so that's the first one. So now I'm going to check this. Click on the Bob icon which has the data operations in it. Okay, so I'm going to reduce this a little and call this, I'll say 300, so it's not that bright up front. Okay, let me make it 200. So 200 watt bulbs. I'll call this a 100-watt bulb. Okay, let me make it 150. All right, so, oh, that's too much. So 150. I'm going to do the same here to reduce the brightness. I'll call this 100. Okay, no, I think the initial 200 is better. And I'm going to render again, and you'll see the difference. Okay, so I'm done rendering image and save. So I'll call this house render 2, and we're going to check this out. Okay, so let's go to Tech Edu. Week 4. I think that's why I started that. Okay, so now let's take a look at this. Okay, let me open it. Open with photos. Okay, I can use photos to open them. Okay, this is first image. And this is, oh, sorry, I was annotating. I'm going to open clearly. And this is our second image. All right, so if you notice, because of the light, the image differs. All right, one tends to be more brighter than the other. So that's the effect of how light can go. All right, now we can also render this using specific backgrounds. The basic one we can just use here is adding a mesh, a plain mesh. So I'm going to add a plain mesh, which is just down here. Okay, so I'm going to toggle to the front view, G of Z to take it a little bit higher. I'm going to pan a bit, S to scale it, And I'll go back to my camera view. It's going to scale still because I want it to cover the entire camera. Now, if you notice the effects of light since you've added an image, I added the background. The one in front is brighter than the one in back. And that's what shadow casting could. That's what shadow casting can do. All right, so I'm going to add color to this. Click on this, new. Let's give it a dark blue color. And that's two. Okay. Okay. I think this complements. Oh, let me. Okay, I'm trying. Okay. Yeah, I think I like this red backgrounds. Okay, let me just do it this way. Okay, okay, let me use yellow, something similar to take a eyedropper to pick that. And I'm going to pick like this. All right, so let's render again and see. Awesome. So this is how our render is going to look like. And you notice that the addition of the background make it look more awesome. All right. So your assessment is to please take any of your previous classwork and render the image file for me, adding your lights so it looks similar to what I have here. All right. Okay. Think that'll be all for lighting. I expect to see your work as we progress. Thank you.